My name is Rami Yaron. I'm chairing the Marketing and Education Committee at the MEF, and I'm also Strategic Advisor for Infovista. Today I'm going to talk about the digital service experience and the area how MEF help with SD-WAN. So let's talk about the industry, about the digital transformation, why it's different, why we need MEF help. So first, when we are talking about challenges, this is multi-layers and multi-domains environment. So we have a different layer that we need to manage. We need to orchestrate everything, different domain, wireline, wireless, overlay, underlay, compute, all comes from different vendors. So it's not like you buy a Juniper or a Cisco solution and you have everything for one vendor that supports you and you have the solution. Then it's all new technology, it's advanced technology. People are moving from hardware to software. There are many, many different architecture choices that you need to select, which is also a challenge. And finally, a solution is disaggregated. What do I mean by that? In the past, you bought everything or each vertical from one vendor that's responsible for everything. It was very easy. Whether you get the training from that vendor, you support it, or you let the vendor support it, or consultant, however you want to do it. Today, operators want the agility. They want their agility, the flexibility to do whatever they want. So they pick the best of breed from different solutions, hardware, software, compute, infrastructure for transport, for overlay. Whoever needs to manage it is the operators themselves. And this is a challenge that we didn't have before. And as you saw throughout the whole conference, MEF is helping the service provider to really succeed in their digital transformation. So one of the ways that we help them is with a professional certification. So Martos Law, anybody heard about Martos Law? All right, great. So this is a very interesting law. We are talking about the change in technology versus the change in organization behavior. So as you can see from the graph, technology change exponentially, while the culture, the behavior of the organization change in a slow pace. Two challenges with that. Every time there is new technology, you open a gap. The other challenge that in the beginning, you don't see the change happen. You think that you are okay. You think that there are no problem. And when you start seeing a problem, that's already too late. And we saw it with our survey. You know, we did a survey, and we do it every 2 years. Every 2 years, we do a survey. And last year, 2018, engineering expertise and technical resources was the #1 challenge for 2008. This is very interesting because we did it in 2016. It was number 6 or 7. I don't remember. It was in the bottom. People thought they are okay. They thought that they don't need any training, any new knowledge. Maybe they didn't start deploying. Maybe it was just the beginning. Last year, it was the #1 challenge. And this is not only this survey. We have another survey that SDS Central did, and they saw the same thing. The #1 challenge to deploy NAV is lack of in-house talent and lack of training. So we see it all over the place. How MEF help? This is our professional certification for the individual. So we have the framework here. We have associate level. I like to call it a broad. This is the first level in the bottom. MEF and F, this is a broad certification talking about a lot of things. Ethernet, layer 1, layer 3, SDN, NAV, the ecosystem, very wide, high level. Then we have MEF-CECP. Everybody here, I'm assume familiar with it. It's Carrier Ethernet, MEF SDN, NAV. And we are coming now with SD-WAN certification. Today I'm going to talk about the SD-WAN certification. So this is the first in the industry professional certification that validates knowledge, skill, and ability of a professional in the SD-WAN domain. So let's talk about this certification. So SDCP, SD-WAN Certified Professional, it's an exam that we developed. It's 40 questions that you need to do in 60 minutes. I'll go over it in a few minutes so you can get an idea about it. It tests everything around SD-WAN, technology, architecture, and it's mainly focused on MEF 70, the SD-WAN MEF spec. MEF has accredited training providers that basically can provide training for the different MEF certifications. I have to tell you that 90% of the certified professionals took training. There are a lot of advantages in taking training. You have a curriculum, you have the material, you learn it in an easy way, and you have instructor, you have ability to ask questions, and from what we hear from service provider that actually take those trainings, they said that productivity of the people went up, so it's a lot of advantage of taking training from the service providers, for the service providers. With regard to the exam, like any other MEF exam, you have multiple options that some or all of the ATPs are providing. You have a classroom training, either on-site or new site if you have enough people, or remote option. You can study by yourself, and I'll walk you through it. And there's also e-learning. So if you look at the SD-WAN, the SDCP material, this is the blueprint. The blueprint has 4 different topics, starting from planning, implementing, lifecycle orchestration, and the features of SD-WAN. Heavy look at implementation. So you really, in order to pass the exam, you really need to understand how to implement SD-WAN. If you want to study yourself, or at least take an idea about the material, we provided a very short list of different resources, so you can study whether yourself or just get an idea before taking a training. Unlike the SDN-NAV, that is a very, very deep certification with lots of material, this is a very small list that I think everybody can go and read it in a weekend probably and understand it, hopefully. So with regard to the timeline, we just finished the beta exam. We wanted to evaluate the material and evaluate the question of the exam. So we had lots of SMEs, subject matter experts that help us writing the questions. Some of them actually are sitting here. And we needed 200 people in order to have good sample. So we had 200 people that did the exam. Now we are evaluating the answers to see what are the easy questions, what are the hard questions to finalize the exam. And by around December 15, more or less, we are going to announce general availability for the exam, and hopefully all of you, if you're interested, go and take the exam. That's all I have for the certification. We would like to start now with the panel. So here I have with me, starting from my far right, I have Craig Easley, who is the Dean of Academic Affairs at the SD-WAN Academy and the Care Ethernet Academy. Second, I have DSunte Wilson, who is the founder of Out-of-Bound Technology, and he's speaking on behalf of Tech 2000. And close to me, I have Sam Hurrell, who is the founder and CEO of Perpetual Solutions. All are very reputable ATPs that provide training for all of the MEF certifications. And I would like to start with some questions, and hopefully we'll get also questions from you, from the audience, for this panel. So first, thank you for joining us for this panel. The first thing that I would like to ask is if each one of you can provide some success story, things that you helped in the past, not necessarily SD-WAN, on any of the MEF topics. How did you help vendor, service provider in this challenge? We saw the challenge, we saw the knowledge gap, we saw the issue. So Craig, why don't you start?
Thanks, Rami. I saw Rami's slide about the challenge gap, or the knowledge gap, between those who are defining new standards and here at the forum, and those who are tasked to implement it or evaluate it in your own networks when you get back at home. So the training and the MEF Professional Certification Program and the certs that we've developed through that over the years, the CECP being the first one, and then followed up with an SDN focused cert, and now an SD-WAN focused cert, really provide that baseline measurement that professionals who hold these certifications understand the technologies that they're tasked to implementing or selling or supporting when they get back to work. So the CECP was fundamental in basically training up a new workforce of Carrier Ethernet qualified professionals so that they could help their companies succeed. And several of the companies that are MEF members really embraced the program and adopted it full heart, and have thousands of CECPs in their ranks. And it's really a global phenomenon. So it's probably, I'd say, maybe 60 or 70% are located here in the States, but there's a tremendous number of CECPs in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, and other places in Asia. So it really is a global phenomenon that the MEF addressed with this professional certification program, and providing the training to learn about the technology so you're able to earn the certification and demonstrate that you have it. So now with the SD-WAN certification, we're poised to do that again. So the SDN and SD-WAN are brand new. They mean a lot of different things to different people, depending on which vendor you're talking to or whose technology you're implementing. And so having a baseline understanding about the components, a baseline understanding about how the MEF 70 services attributes document works, it will be fundamental and to the success of the professionals who are going to lead this next generation of networking.
Thanks, Craig. DSunte, can you share with us some success story, how you guys help?
Yes, thank you, Rami. One of the things that we actually did in the CECP is actually have like a full circle learning. That's what I call it. Like people learn differently from either e-learning after the class or hand-based labs that are just really focused towards the concepts. I find that our successes have been, we had a major corporation that we worked with, and we had people that were like, you know what, I'm good with this, but then they were sort of, how can I put this, scared to jump into it. But I know the same concepts with SD-WAN, having that, like you said, the baseline, having that same common language is so important, so everyone is not scared to talk about it, so they have the same lingo. So for our successes and what we've done in the past is actually having more of a full circle learning, so that way if you are able to do an e-learning aspect or a classroom learning or just self-study, so you're able to accomplish that. So we actually had success in doing a more broad-based full circle learning in the past.
Yes, and I like also the idea of labs and a structured environment which you cannot get with self-study. It's nice. Sam, can you share some success stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing at Perpetual is we're building learning pathways, and they'll be designed for service providers or vendors, and inside of those learning pathways there'll be various different topics, and There will be some testing at the end of that learning pathway, and each type of profession within an organization, so you might have sales engineering, you might have product management, you might have network engineering, they'll be expected to pass some of these exams after some of the learning in the pathway, and they're awarded credits, and that's internally recognized. And what we've found with our customers is if there is a vendor-neutral certification, then that gets a lot more recognition internally than, say, a custom-built exam for that single customer. And when we've been delivering the MEF exams, the rigorous nature of the way that MEF has built these exams really stands out compared to some of the other certifications in the industry. And the employers can definitely see that people going through the learning pathway, and it involves, say, carrier Ethernet, once they come out with that certification, there's higher value in their productivity. And so those certifications get recognized within the organization. It's a reward for the employee, and can often lead to like bonuses, things like this. Yeah, there's a lot of value there for those companies seeing these people go through the MEF 1, which is very rigorous, and yeah, gives them excellent value.
So you focus mostly on the tailoring it based on the profession of those students that take the training.
Yeah, exactly, yes. Yeah, so people who are working within the, say with the MEF-CECP, people working in the carrier Ethernet area, they'll do that one, but then there may be other role types who don't need to go to the level of CECP and may get some higher level training like the network foundations, so they can have a certification too. I think with the moving to the SD-WAN certification, I think it's going to be very important for the sales engineers. And if you think about the role that a sales engineer has, he wants to go out and he wants to bring value to his customer. He wants his customer to see him as the trusted advisor. And if he can, have that fundamental baseline of knowledge and be able to talk knowledgeably and sensibly with the customer about SD-WAN and show them how the SD-WAN can change their business, then they will become that trusted advisor. And that's absolutely what the sales guy wants to do with his customer. If you're having those conversations with the customer, it's the touch points, and it's very good for your business.
So I think all of you were talking about, and I guess you have the proof of that people that took the training increased their productivity, which is great. How do you see people taking the training? Is it more in class? Is it more remote? Do you see online? Craig, why don't you start? And I would like also to hear if you have any preference, if you think one is more productive than another.
Yeah. So 99% of our alumni have taken an instructor-led training program. It's really like anything else that if you have self-study material, it's like saying that you're going to eat less and exercise more and someday you're going to lose weight. And if you join a Weight Watchers or something that's a forcing function, and you go and you experience it, and you can ask the instructor questions, you can get coaching and motivation to continue and learn. It's just a completely different game. So we've had online and remote or online via WebEx or something training options, but they're just nowhere near as popular as the instructor-led in classroom training that we specialize in. And it's kind of fun because we're all in the vendor neutral, we're technology training companies from teaching these MEF certifications. And so a lot of times we get a chance to go in and they've heard this from this vendor. And then the next vendor says, oh, no, that's not how it works. It works like this over here. And so we by arming our alumni with knowledge about how the components work, how the technology really works, how to look things up in standards documents when there's a question, we make our students better engineers for their companies that are deploying this technology, and better consumers of the technology.
So one quick question, you mentioned that 90-something took the... 99 took the instructor-led.
Yeah.
Do you see different in the performance in the exam between the WebEx and the...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's just because it's hard to stay focused. So then if you come up and visit, we have at the networking booth following this section, I have another piece of study material that we're making available to all the attendees here. But we call our course Boot Camp because it's 3 days of intense learning. And so we published a boot camp survival guide that I invite all of you to come and pick up for the CECP or for the SDN and SD-WAN certifications. And if you just had that material alone and you were looking at it and you're kind of watching the WebEx, but you're doing your email and you're doing your expense report, it's not the same as sitting in a class where, if you're drifting off, the instructor can catch you looking at your email and say, oh, what did you think about that, Tom?
That's nice. DSunte, do you have the same experience?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. The thing about it is, and I always joke in the classroom, tell my students this, I put the manual down, and if I'll walk away, they'll just do something else. And it's material sometimes that, I tell my students, yeah, you can read this at night, and about 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, you'll fall asleep. Okay, he's correct. It's really something that's got to be interactive. Yeah. It's something that's you gotta almost feel that burn when you understand these terms and go through it, because it's a rigorous, concepts and rigorous in terms of understanding it. And I think just reading through a manual and not letting it come alive is something that's a challenge. I mean, on the online aspects, I mean, there are different things that can happen as well that can actually make it be more interactive as well. The instructor-led training definitely makes it come alive as well in this case. But I do have to say, if you are not a participant, it's not it's not a spectator sport, if you will, this certifications, you have to participate. And I always tell my students, I have a phrase, habit is not the same as hard work. Like just being there and sitting in front of the computer or just in the classroom, you have to participate and you'll get it. Okay, in this case, I've had students come in and talking about sales engineers, they're like, oh, I'm never gonna get this, but they were really dedicated, and I believe they got it some more than some of the engineers that were just like, oh yeah, this is actually no problem, and then they were able to go through it and get the certifications, whereas the engineer was like, oh wow, I should have paid attention. Okay, in that case, so I definitely believe that this is more for participatory technology that you have to get into.
And this is what you mostly offer, the instructor-led training?
Instructor-led, we do e-learning where we do a little bit more, we like to do more of gaming, if you will, to get people involved in that. We find that if it's just more of, just actually you're there and we're seeing that you're participating in it. It's a little bit more challenging in the e-learning space, but it's actually, I like that challenge, a little bit more fun too.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm all for instructor-led training. What I'm hearing from companies is that sometimes they don't have all the people in the same place, or logistically, or not at the same time. But I do like, and I do believe that the results are much better when it's instructor-led. Sam, what do you offer?
I would definitely say that still there's lots and lots of instructor-led training, and people get really great results with that. They know that the students are in the class for those 3 days, those 5 days, whatever it may be, and that they're going to be paying attention. However, as you pointed out, the world is changing. And workforces are getting smaller, they're becoming more geographically dispersed, they're expected to be performing, you know, multiple roles these days. There's a lot of demand on people's time. So we are seeing a shift towards the virtual learning, which offers the customers the ability to be able to get a geographically dispersed team together into the same time zone, into the virtual classroom. So we're definitely seeing more of that. And then we're also seeing people who are just not allowed to take 3 days even out of their busy work schedule, and they're opting for the online option. And I think then it comes to the, you know, some people will succeed in that, in those endeavors of doing it virtually or doing it online if they're motivated. They've got to be motivated in the right way, and it's either the organization that they work for motivating them or their own personal motivation, and then they can get good results out of the virtual and the online. Yeah, we're tackling all of those different formats, and would definitely say there is this shift towards yeah, certainly virtual.
But still you see better results where? In the InstructorLed?
We had some very good results from the virtual learning, some high scores, but in terms of, say, if 10 people went through the class, then we'd get a higher percentage of those people passing from the InstructorLed training probably than from the virtual training. And I think that comes down to the motivation. So it's how do those companies motivate them to pay attention, you know, to close the email, to shut down Skype, to make sure that they're just doing the classroom. So we've got some instructions that we'll send out, you know, get yourself in a quiet environment, get yourself a decent quality headset and mic, make sure that you're not going to be interrupted. If there's a group of you in one location, then try and go into a place where you've got a big conference screen and almost treat it like a real classroom environment. So there are ways that you can try and increase that motivation.
So I guess I'm hearing that some of the issues is people cannot travel, other is people cannot take time from their job. I still don't understand how they can study if they cannot take time from their job.
Well, if this learning is important to doing their job, and the managers that recognize the productivity boost that they're going to get from their people not doing the same inefficient job that they've been doing and take 3 days away, know that it's an investment. It's not that you're pulling somebody out and their work and their job is not getting done anymore. So the smarter companies recognize that investment in their workforce. They're willing to take the people out, train them, get them the skills that they need to do their job more effectively, and then the companies reap the reward for that, you know, down the line.
Absolutely. So let's shift a little bit and talk about the SD-WAN. So SD-WAN is a very disruptive technology, and it's keep changing. When I started with SD-WAN, I saw that absolutely no certification, no training is needed. The carrier basically came to the enterprise customer and say, how much you're paying for your communication today? We can get it cheaper. For this, they didn't need training, and the vendor training was sufficient. Now things change, and suddenly they offer a lot of added value services. Suddenly SD-WAN became important strategically, and the architecture is important, and they are building architecture with their customers. So suddenly, certification is important, training is important, it's not all about price. I wanted to ask the panel here, how you plan to help those service providers or vendors with SD-WAN specifically?
Right. Well, so when the MEF came out with the SDN NFV certification about a year and a half ago, there were a number of people that were interested in that. A number of my existing clients who we had taught CECP to over the years were interested in this next MEF certification. And so when we started teaching the SDN NFV cert, it was lacking something. It didn't have the application story. Not a lot of service providers were just needed to know how OpenFlow worked in order to do their jobs better. But I started asking, well, why did you come to this class? Oh, well, we're being besieged with SD-WAN solutions, and when the sales guys and the SEs and the architects start talking about SD-WAN edge and gateway and overlay connectivity service and underlay connectivity service and then a controller and an orchestrator and customer portal, their heads start to spin because they don't know what any of that stuff is or means. So our class very quickly evolved into an SD-WAN class, probably 6 or 9 months ahead before the of the MEF certification was begun to be worked on. So over the past almost 2 years now, the SDN-NFV class that we teach at the SD-WAN Academy teaches you how to pass the MEF's SDN-NFV cert. You also learn enough open flow stuff that you could pass the ONF's OCSA, their certification. And then with our new module that covers MEF 70 and MEF 90, you'll be able to prepare for the new MEF SD-WAN or the SDCP certification. Yes. So it was the evolution of asking what brought customers into the class or students into the classroom, and they really wanted to know about SD-WAN because every solution is different, and we're in sort of a chaotic early market development phase where not a lot of the solutions are interoperable. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. The people that are buying don't really understand how to ask the right questions, and it's very expensive to implement the wrong solution and have to go, change horses because you're in most cases you're risking losing a lot of the investment that you made, not to mention the time and effort and the rest of it. So
absolutely, yes.
I like to think of it as like rules and standards. It's like. And I joke with this with my colleagues about this topic. It's like when we were kids don't play kickball anymore, they play video games. But when we were kids, we played kickball, and you set the rules. You said, hey, this is going to be home, it's going to be first base, second base, third base, and if the car happened to move, you made a new base. These are setting rules. And before there was no standard, there was no communication. Sales engineers would go out and the terms would be different. They would move from one company to another company, things would be different. Engineers would want more structure. And then in the classroom, you would get sort of sidetracked into the SD-WAN in that case. So I believe that this actually makes a lot more structure and rules that everyone can actually have a fair understanding.
Yes, so it's the rule, it's also, like Craig said, it's also the application on top of SDN-NFV. Yeah. Yes, we are implementing SDN-NFV as a service providers, but we are selling SD-WAN, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Sam, how are you going to help the service provider with the new certification?
For us, it's part of a process of learning for the whole organization. Go back to those learning pathways and having those different professions within your business. And so what we're seeing as we move into the new world, we've got people who are dealing with the underlay, and we have a network automation training for them. We've got people who are dealing with the overlay, and we have NFV training for them. And then we've got the sales engineers who are out there taking these new products, these SD-WAN products, to the customer. And it's about having those rules and that language, that common language, so that when they go out, they can take a message that it's the correct understanding of all of these technologies. And that will be work of the MEF, work from ONUG, work from the IETF, and all of this gets built together into the SD-WAN class that we're doing, giving those sales engineers that knowledge so that they can be that trusted advisor is absolutely critical. That's how the organizations can get value from all of these opportunities that SD-WAN is throwing up. You know, it's going to be a key enabler of Industry 4.0, but it's getting very technically complex now. We're moving from first generation SD-WAN into second generation SD-WAN, where we've got white box, we've got virtualization, we've got multiple VNFs from different service providers, all there for the enterprise. And if the sales engineer can take valuable knowledge of how all that is stacking up to these enterprises and enable them to free up resources from their own internal IT departments, then they're taking something of great value. So Yeah.
So it's more holistic approach, not
Yes,
just
exactly.
the MEF certification, more holistic approach on what the organization needs to
Well,
support.
if you look at what MEF does, MEF would be the first to say that collaboration is key in this space, and working with lots of other different organizations to achieve the goal. And that's what we're reflecting in the training, that there are these other pieces of work that are very important that the enterprise customers are going to ask about. They're going to ask about how the different vendors are doing things, what's the difference from one vendor to another. And if the sales engineer is able to explain some of those different approaches and then some of the different use cases, then that's great value to the customer.
I have a question for the audience. How many here think they are interested or the organization is interested in the SD-WAN certification? If you can raise hands. All right, very good, very good. So I think we don't have much time left, but I still have more questions, at least one question I want to ask. Maybe I can get short answer here, is if you can tell me the first 3 highest professionals that are taking, in general, MEF training. Is it sales engineer? Is it architect, engineers? What are the 3 main categories of professions that take the MEF certification?
Yes, so we've been tracking job titles coming through the certification program since the inception of the CECP, and we're continuing to do that now with the new certifications. They're technical. I mean, the MEF technical certifications are, as we talked earlier, are rigorous, and you do need to study and prepare to pass them. The top 3 job titles over it's almost 10 years that we've been doing the CECP now, have been sales engineers, technical network engineers, and then probably the next one would be support engineers, so people that are answering the phone when something goes wrong. Anybody that needs to talk to their customers or partners or internal and needs to understand the language of carrier Ethernet, now the language of SD and SD-WAN, will benefit from these certifications.
Very good. DSunte?
I agree with that. At the core, it's definitely the network technical engineer that actually has to get the most understanding of what's going on in that case. On the outside would be the support person, whatever their title may be, tech support, help desk, or whatever in that case. And then obviously, cushion in the middle would be the sales engineer, which would be the person that would be applicable to this understanding how things are put together. But also another audience that actually is very popular is the executives that have to make the decisions about the financial side of where things are going. So they have to really understand that their decisions are going to have consequences in this environment.
Interesting. Very good. Sam?
Yeah, I think I'd echo that, and then I'd see there's kind of layers. So the highly technical people will do the MEF certifications, and then you'll get some people who are slightly less technical may do the MEF network foundations. But then outside of that, there's this whole other layer, like the executives, like the sales guys who are not true sales engineers, but they're still involved in the sales. And I think it's all about just spreading that common language across the organization so that the executives have the understanding of the terminology at a much higher level, but the same understanding of terminology as the technical people do. And so within the SDN and NFV training that we do, we'd have, say, half day for executives, senior managers at board level. Then we'll have 2 days for maybe product managers. Then we've got the MEF certifications for the more technical roles. And you're just standardizing that skills base across it just makes the projects move much quicker. So.
Very good. That's great. So we came to the end of the panel. I really want to thank our great panelists. And if you guys thinking about any MEF training, you have the people here.